This comparison video is brought to you by sellcashier.com. Sellcashier compares iPhone prices online and gives you a quick quote to get you the most cash for your iPhone. It's simple, fast, and secure. Check the description for more information. What's going on, everybody? How's it going? This is Waj. Hope you guys are all doing well. And in this video, we'll be doing a direct head-to-head smartwatch comparison between two of my most anticipated smartwatches of the entire year. I'm certainly talking about the Apple Watch versus the brand new Pebble Time. Now, I just got my new Pebble Time in very recently. This is the Kickstarter version. Eventually, it will come out in stores coming out very, very soon. But basically, we're going to take a look at what both smartwatches has to offer, take a look at the advantages and disadvantages of both of them, and see which one is the definitive smartwatch that you should spend your hard-earned money on if you're interested in getting one of these gadgets that go on your wrist. So without any further ado, let's get right into this comparison. Now, from purely a design perspective, the Pebble Time is completely different. It certainly doesn't look and feel as premium as the Apple Watch, which is primarily made out of aluminum construction if you get the Apple Watch Sport. And if you take a look at the standard Apple Watch and the Apple Watch Edition, you're looking at a higher premium of build materials there. Mostly the Pebble Time is made of polycarbonate plastics, but thankfully you do have a nice stainless steel bezel that covers most of that plasticiness. Now, physically speaking, the Time is just a little bit physically larger than the 38mm version of the Apple Watch, as you can see over here from the measurements. Additionally, it is also a little bit thinner, measuring about 9.5mm versus about 10.5mm on the Apple Watch. Furthermore, when it comes to weight, the Apple Watch is heavier at 72 grams combined with the case and strap, versus the Pebble Time with the silicone strap measures about 42.5 grams. Now, probably one of my biggest gripes about the Pebble Time is the fact that it still has a very thick border that goes around the screen. The screen is actually pretty small, as you can see over here, compared to the Apple Watch, but it doesn't help by having those big borders and then an even larger bezel around it. Now, let's talk about strap options. On the Apple Watch side, you have a decent amount of options, mostly coming from the Apple perspective. So you pretty much have to get their own proprietary Apple Watch straps. There are ways around it, but it is a hassle to deal with adapters and things like that. Versus the Pebble Time has a universally accepted 22mm strap option, so you can use what they have or basically get any 22mm watch strap and customize the look of your watch to your heart's content. Really nice to see there. Even though the Apple Watch has a good amount of selections and really nice looking straps, most of the straps are fairly expensive and, in my opinion, overpriced. Now, in terms of durability, even though the Pebble Time is made of polycarbonate plastics, it's still very durable. It's both dust and water resistant like the Apple Watch, and it's using Gorilla Glass technology, so it's fairly scratch resistant. On the Apple Watch side, if you get the standard sports watch, it comes with ion strengthened glass. If you get the standard Apple Watch or the higher end versions, you get sapphire crystal glass, which is even more stronger and more resilient to scratches. Now, in terms of controls, you have a decent amount of input options when it comes to the Apple Watch. You can use your voice to talk to Siri to do different things. You have obviously the digital crown, which has multiple different functions, as well as a dedicated favorites button to get to your favorites contact, and you also have the full touchscreen as well as the Force Touch feature that the Apple Watch inherently has. By comparison, the Pebble Time is a lot more sparse in terms of its input options. Primary controls are based on 4 different buttons. Each of the buttons do different things to allow you to control the entire watch. There's no touchscreen, and even though it has a microphone, there are no voice commands at this stage of the game. Now, there are advantages and disadvantages of this all physical design. Basically, because it's a physical tactile sensation, some people might like that better than a touchscreen due to the fact that you can control the watch without having to directly look at it, which is great if you want to dismiss notifications or stop alarms. Now, in terms of navigating the operating systems, I would have to say that it's obviously more intuitive on the Apple Watch side because it's using a touchscreen and everyone knows how to use a touchscreen, and plus with the digital crown, input becomes a lot more easier, especially if you want to input numbers or any kind of information on a different application. So in terms of an innovation standard, the Apple Watch is certainly offering something different and unique that most smartwatches don't have, versus the Pebble Time opts for a more simpler approach to controlling your smartwatch. Now, let's finally talk about the displays on these two devices. Now, you know about the Apple Watch display. You know it's brilliant, it's OLED, it's a Retina display, so fairly high resolution, and there is really no comparison between the two in terms of the fidelity and quality of the display. The Apple Watch will always have it against the Pebble because the Pebble is using a fairly low resolution display comparatively, and it is Additionally, a smaller screen measuring about 1.25 inches with a PPI count of about 182, far lower than the PPI count of the 38mm of the Apple Watch, measuring about 290. Now, in terms of the display technology, they're completely different. We have a color e-paper display on the Pebble Time, much like we did with the original Pebble. Now, there's a couple of advantages and disadvantages to that. Now, the disadvantages is that the backlight is not going to be as bright as a standard OLED display. Additionally, your colors and saturation are going to look fairly flat and muddy. Everything is going to have like a dull tinge to it because it's not really a representative screen of what we expect to find on an OLED display or an LCD display, because it's using a completely different technology. Now, the plus sides, and there are a lot of plus sides. Firstly, it has to be that it can be passively illuminated. So that means no matter where you are, the ambient light in your environment will passively illuminate the display, which is fantastic if you're outdoors in the bright sunlight. So the brighter the sunlight, unlike most devices, the brighter your screen will get, which is really great. Furthermore, the watch is always on, so no need to flick the wrist to wake the watch up to get most of your information. It's always going to be on right there when you need it. And furthermore, because it's an e-ink display, it's only going to use power once the screen is refreshed or something's happening on the screen. During the phases where it's not doing anything, it's going to use very, very little power, and that's going to be one of the biggest advantages of the Pebble Time compared to every other device, because most devices, the biggest battery drain is going to be the display. Now, we'll get into the exact differences in terms of the battery performance, but essentially the trade-off to all this is going to be the battery performance of these two. Now, moving on, let's talk about the internal sensors we have on both these two devices. Now, they both have the standard fare of accelerometer, gyroscopes, compass, as well as an ambient light sensor. There are a couple things that the Pebble Time is missing. Mainly, it doesn't have a heart rate monitor, so there's no optical heart rate monitor like we have on the Apple Watch. You're going to have to use some kind of accessory that pairs with the Pebble in order to enable that if you do need that. Now, it does track your footsteps and things like that, but no heart rate monitoring or anything like that. On top of that, the Apple Watch does have NFC capabilities specifically for Apple Pay applications. We don't see those sensors built into the Pebble Time at this point, but there is a trick up its sleeve. Basically, Pebble has announced that they're going to be offering smart strap options. So if you look at the back of the Pebble Time, you'll see a couple of magnetic connections, and mostly those are for charging at the moment, but there's some extra pins in there that is going to allow it to interface with a smart strap. Now, some of these smart straps will have options for perhaps GPS, NFC capabilities, and furthermore. So essentially, you could in the future have an upgradable smartwatch, one of the first smartwatch device that you could potentially upgrade down the road, making it a little bit more future-proof. Now, move forward, let's talk about the internals we have on both of these two devices. Now, the Apple Watch is using Apple's own custom chip. It's using the S1 processor. It has 8 gigabytes of internal memory, and it's using the PowerVR for all of its GPU acceleration. Now, the Pebble Time internals are certainly not as powerful as the Apple Watch is using an ARM Cortex M4 chip, clocked around only 100 megahertz, if you can believe that. It has an internal memory capacity of about 128 megabytes. Certainly nowhere as much as the Apple Watch. Now, the good news is the technical stuff really doesn't matter. If you actually use both of these two devices, they're both just as snappy. And in fact, I would say that the Pebble Time has a real sense of urgency towards it. And when you're navigating through different applications and just using the OS in general, it's very snappy. It has no lag whatsoever, and it feels very fluid and dynamic. The Apple Watch, on the other hand, can be a little bit sluggish because it's trying to be a miniaturized iPhone. And even though 90% of the time I have no problem in terms of using it, things are fairly fluid and snappy, there are a couple of times that I've had applications kind of crash on me, and things felt a little bit sluggish if you're doing anything too intensive too quickly. If you stick to the basics, it's perfectly fine, but once you start pushing the envelope of what the Apple Watch can do, things start to get a little bit slow and a little bit finicky, which is certainly not the case on the Pebble side. Now, let's talk about the software that comes in both of these two devices. Now, we're not going to go into a major detailed analysis on how they both work, but essentially, in terms of compatibility, basically the Apple Watch is going to be specifically for the iOS platform, as you would expect, and that's basically iPhone 5 and newer running iOS 8.2 and newer. On the Pebble Time, one of the biggest advantages is that it works both for iOS, so iPhone 4S and newer running iOS 8. And in terms of the Android compatibility, ability to pretty much work with any Android device that's running Android 4.0 or newer. So that's really great, and the Pebble Time certainly has the Apple Watch beat when it comes to compatibility and flexibility. Now, in terms of the actual software running both of these two devices, essentially they want to do the same thing. They both want to push your notifications, your appointments, text messages, everything that goes on your phone in terms of information you need to know on your wrist. And they both do a good job of doing that. There's really no complaints there, and pretty much all smart devices are in the same category when it comes to that. The main differences over here is just the way that they present information. Now, the whole thing about the new Pebble Time is the timeline interface. And basically what this is it allows you to see what's going to happen in the future and what happened in the past. And that can be many different things when it comes to weather, your emails, your appointments, scheduling, sports information. Depending upon what apps you have installed, you can customize your own timeline, which in my opinion is a really elegant solution in managing your time properly. So if you want to see what appointments you're going to have later on the day or what the weather is going to be like, you simply go forward. And if you want to see different things that happened in the past in terms of different notifications, emails, appointments, all those things, you have the access to that as well right then and there on the main screen of your Pebble Time. Now, in terms of learning curve and ease of use, I think even though the Apple Watch is fairly easy to use for most people out there, but for some who are new to smartwatches, it might be a little bit alienating because there is certainly a learning curve, and you do have to know a couple of different things before you can set up your watch properly. Now, by comparison, I wouldn't say that the Pebble Time is a lot more easier to use and has a less of a learning curve, but I think because of the fact that the operating system is a lot more basic and simple, people are going to manage their head around it a little bit more quicker than the much more fancier and flashier looking watch OS we have on the Apple Watch. But again, I wouldn't say that one is better than the other explicitly. I would have to say that you guys have to try out the watches yourself and see which OS best suits your needs and which you find easier to use. Now, in terms of the applications library, one advantage of the Pebble Time is using the existing Pebble library on top of the color apps that Pebble has introduced. So you have about 8,000 or so Pebble Claims applications available to you right now on both the iOS and Android platform. And on the Apple Watch side, we have just over 1,000 or so applications in early development. Now, we're still in the early days of Apple Watch development, and I'm sure the library is going to get better and better and mature as you go along. Now, quantity doesn't always mean quality, so definitely check out both applications library, figure out what applications you're going to need. In terms of the basic stuff, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, you're going to find those options on pretty much every platform, so no real worries there. Now, winding down this comparison, we're going to talk about probably one of the most important things about these two devices. That's going to be the battery life. And now, technically speaking, when it comes to the size of the batteries, we have a 205 milliamp hour battery on the Apple Watch and a 140 milliamp hour battery on the Pebble Time. So comparatively, a lot smaller battery on the Pebble Time, but because the internal architecture and hardware is a lot more power efficient, specifically when it comes to the Cortex M4 processor and that e-paper display that we talked about in some great length, you're going to find a huge difference in terms of battery performance. Now, what I did to basically test out both smartwatches is I essentially used them both in the same behavioral patterns with similar applications. Now, we can't have a completely specific apples to apples comparison because of the fact that they are running different architectures, different applications, and different OSs, but we are going to make sure that my user habits are the same across the board. So I basically used both devices for about 2 weeks, and basically I averaged about a day and a half on the Apple Watch versus 6 days and a half on the Pebble Time. So a massive night and day difference. I've never seen a difference like this before on any smart device. And although the Pebble Time is pretty much similar to the battery performance we got on the previous generation Pebble, it's nice to see that we do have a faster internal processing, a color e-ink display, and we are still maintaining that amazing legendary battery life, which I think a lot of people would definitely love to have a device, any electronic device that lasts a week or more, depending upon how you use it. So really nice performance and certainly a big selling factor of the Pebble Watch. Now, the last and final thing that we're going to talk about in this video is the price point of both of these two smartwatches. Now, the Apple Watch comes around $350 at the baseline version. We have that configuration with the sports strap and everything like that. But you can spend up to like $20,000 if you want the gold edition with the fancy strap and everything. And if you see the value in it, if you like some of the features that it offers over the Pebble Time, definitely go for it. But one of the great things about all the Pebble smartwatches, I think, is that they really come at a competitive price point. And this new Pebble is certainly no exception. It's going to retail for about $200, and if you want a fancier version that they're going to come out with very soon, the Pebble Time Steel, it's going to be available for about $100 extra, so around $300. So in both cases, you're still looking at a cheaper watch than the Apple Watch, even as cheaper configuration compared to the Apple Watch Sport. And really, at the end of the day, you have to take a look at both and see what features you like about one watch that might sway you to go with one over the other. Definitely let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. For me personally, the value proposition on the Pebble always sells me. I'm more of an Android and iOS user, so having that cross compatibility is really a handy thing that I think I certainly need to have in any smart device that goes on your wrist. But definitely let me know what you guys think, and if you are interested in any of these products, definitely check out the Amazon links down below. Helps grow the channel if you go through any of our links. Doesn't cost you guys anything extra, and we certainly do really appreciate your support. But really, other than that, guys, that's really it. Thank you so much for watching again, and we'll see you later. Take care. Now, just one last thing, guys. Before we leave off, I want to mention sellcashier.com. Basically, one of the biggest problems about upgrading to a new smartphone is what the heck do we do with the old version? Do we sell it, put it on Craigslist, eBay? There's a lot of hassle, and now there's a great solution for it, and it's basically to use sellcashier.com. So if you have an iPhone, basically Sellcashier purchases your iPhone from all the major US carriers. They currently only operate in the United States, but it's really simple, fast, and secure. They actually compare all of the best prices online for your current iPhone, depending upon what kind of condition it is in and everything like that. You're pretty much guaranteed to get the best possible price for your existing iPhone. And as a bonus, they can even send you out a prepaid shipping label so you can ship your iPhone to them for free. So definitely check them out. There's been actually a couple of viewers that actually went through Sellcashiers and had a positive experience. I want to thank all you guys that help us support the channel, and I want to thank Sellcashier for sponsoring this video. But other than that, that's really it. Thank you so much again for watching, and we'll see you later.